The Punisher was a controversial character before people were being offended by everything in the world. So how are people in 2021 reacting to the Punisher? Well, it's not great. People are calling for the character to be retired by Marvel, and others are trying to get a not-so-great video game director to adapt a game on him, which will undoubtedly only make it worse. But maybe people just have a bad time with the Punisher because they don't fully understand the character. Well, we're going to break all that down in this episode of the Poppycock Podcast. Cue Stinger. Yeah, it's all poppycock. None of this matters. Frank Castle is an interesting guy, and he's difficult to understand, in no small part due to the fact that comic books and movies and Netflix series have all been pretty inconsistent in what he looks like, he acts like, and what motivates him. Some versions, he's drawn almost as big as the Hulk. Like, he looks like a minivan walking towards you, which is physically impossible. I feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger is about as big as a human can get. And I know that that's some artist's personal portrayal, but the whole point is the fact that the Punisher is a regular guy who just is very good at what he does. And you could say he's the best at what he does, and what he does isn't very nice, but I think someone else in the Marvel Universe would argue that that's copyright infringement. Actually, I wonder if in the universe, if they do copyright things. Iron Man absolutely would, but I don't think, like, Spider-Man would or anything. You could be like, I'm your friendly neighborhood Daredevil, and he'd be like, man, I don't have the money for that. I gotta pay rent. Fun fact for the day, I chose not to be a photographer in high school, pursuing that as a career throughout college, because in comic books, Peter Parker is always poor. And I had just watched the Spider-Man movies growing up. They were still releasing, the Tobey Maguire era. And so I thought photography didn't pay well. And then, fast forward to 2020, and I'm becoming a photographer again and realizing if you've ever been married or gone to a wedding, the photographers get paid pretty well. It's actually, partially to blame Marvel for, lying about photography. Partially to blame me for believing a comic book about how finances work in hindsight. Anyway, the Punisher's been portrayed a lot of different ways, and something that kind of stirred this up, I've mentioned it in previous things on the Poppycock podcast, that I am trying to put sort of my own, not my spin on it, but I want to put my own DNA into a Punisher story, because I was in the military, but I know a lot of Marines, which the Punisher was. So I'm trying to bring a little bit of like what a real Marine would be like. And I met a lot of really great guys all the way back from the Vietnam era. I met a couple World War II guys, all the way up to like modern day, through like the early days of Afghan and modern now. So you have I can see the full spectrum of like what were their habits, what were their personalities like, what were the things that they did in their time off, what were the hobbies, what did they do in the barracks, what did they do when they were deployed, all those little things that you don't get unless you've been part of that culture. And I really wanted to provide sort of a baseline, because I think with most characters, like Captain America, you have a baseline. He believes in doing the right thing, old school American values, the use of steroids when Uncle Sam allows it, and he's a nice guy. So when someone writes him differently, you're like, well, I don't like that, but I don't like that because it's not the correct version of him. Spider-Man's also a very well-defined character. Even Miles Morales, who's a more recent addition to the Spider-Man family, is a very well-defined character as far as where his morals lie, his motivation lies, who he is as a person. You could imagine that as a real person. And Frank has not been defined as a real person yet. I mean, just from the comic books, you have a bunch of different art styles and storytellers that are all interpreting it differently. And not a lot of people have gone through the trauma of, just waking up one day and being told you're going to go somewhere that you've never heard of, or finding out that, while you were off on leave for vacation time, that one of your buddies left and got fingers blown off or a leg or died. It takes little bits of you every single day away from you until there's not a lot left. And to come back to a family and lose that would there's not really an equatable thing. It's like a slow, toxic torture, and you have a lifeline, and that lifeline that's going to pull you out snaps. And, you know, thankfully, not a lot of the writers over at Marvel have been through trauma at that scale, anywhere near it, within that vein, you know? And I think that's sort of led to an inaccurate and uneven distribution of Frank Castle's traits and who he is. Because I remember seeing a comic where a guy was like, I'm a reformed criminal. He's like, I don't care. And he shot him in the head. And that's not cool because technically Frank is a criminal. So technically he would have to kill himself. If there were two Punishers, they would have to kill each other, which I'm sure that's a comic somewhere. It just, that bothered me because what's the point of the criminal justice system? And the whole thing is Frank has this whole speech about how most of the time the system works. It's a very famous speech. I don't remember which Punisher run it's from off the top of my head. And it's like 99% of the time it works. It gets the bad guys. It protects the innocent. It moves laws through correctly. It provides relief for those in need. It creates a system where, you know, the right type of society can exist. But some people lie and cheat and bribe their way through the system, or they slip through the fingers of justice. And when that happens, he's there. He's there to clean up the stuff that goes in between. He's there to take out the scum he's going to take out the human traffickers and rapists that you never see in a Spider-Man or Captain America story, despite them maybe even being in the same city at the same time. He's just in a different part of the world. He's dealing with the stuff that eats away at like your soul and hurts you just to even know that it still exists to that level, so that the other superheroes stay super, you know, because he's not a superhero. Some people call him an anti-hero, and I'm not sure I agree with that total definition, because I also think the anti-hero term has sort of been diluted a little bit over the years. That's just how, you know, words and phrases take on new meanings throughout time. It's inevitable and frustrating. And I think he's just a well-focused killer. I think he's a man who he does bad things to bad people and hopes every day that he'll wake up to a world that no longer needs him. He wants to be part of society that can be forgotten and thrown away, and people will forget he's there because he's already dead in his mind. When his family died, and I would argue little bits throughout the military, he lost bits of who he was, and he never had a chance to recoup into something new. And that's one of the things I will give Netflix props for, is they surrounded Frank, a broken character that by the nature of who he is, he cannot recover. He cannot escape his trauma and make a life for himself. He'll never do that, really. And they surround him with military people who put their lives back together in a good way, or are struggling to, but heading down that direction. While they do a good job of showing the pitfalls of what can happen, while showing that there is hope. And I do respect that. I appreciate it. I don't appreciate the country music twang and bluegrass shit they put on all the music. That I was less thrilled about. It's just, really, dude? Come on. Anyway. And while I was doing all this, you know, research and stuff for my version of Frank that I want to really keep hammered down, there hasn't been a really consistent Frank Castle in art and story and character for a while. And I think that most people don't realize that he's a guy who wants to wake up in a world that's perfect. He wants white picket fences and apple pie and baseball and neighbors borrowing sugar from one another and having outdoor barbecues and laughing with their kids and no crime and no corruption and happiness. He doesn't want to live in a Mad Max murder world where he's just there with a bloody boner killing everything. Like, he's not a masochist like that. He's just a guy who's in pain, can no longer feel happiness to, you know, the degree that he used to. He's heavily traumatized, and he's good at what he does, and he doesn't want anyone else to go through it. He's an extreme version of Batman, you know? It's like, hey, I went through something bad. Let's make sure that doesn't happen to other people. And he's just taking it to a very 11th degree. So one of the most recent comics, and I'm actually going to, the audio might get a little funky here for a second because I'm going to real quick look up. The art in it is incredible, and the stories. Okay, no, that's not it. I'm looking for it because the Punisher isn't done very well. So Punisher Black and White, it looks like, is what it's called, and it's by Edmondson and Gerards. And then that's volume 1. Then volume 2 is Border Crossing. Incredible art. It's so hard to draw weapons. And they get the way the magazine looks. There's tactical military pants that have the knee pads built in, because otherwise they slide down and become ankle pads after a while. And also, there's a whole thing. I'm looking at it here. Oh, God, I can't read their names on it. Well, there's the Punisher War Machine, which is sick as hell. And Secret Wars. Oh, no, that one's just Secret Wars. I thought that was the Punisher one. It's a good comic, though. Unrelated. Volumes 1 and 2 of Punisher War Machine are pretty awesome. He's drawn like John Bernthal, which is pretty nifty. And there's the Punisher, the Warren Begalia, I believe is what it's called there. And it might be War Journal or Civil War that's right before that. I'm trying to see. There was a name of another one that leads up into that, but essentially that one, he's drawn differently. It's a different creative team, but he's stuck on an island that's an island nation run by super criminals, and he's in their prison system with like a nun with one eye and like good people, essentially. And so he has to lead a revolt from a prison and starts hunting and killing like Baron Zemo and Jigsaw and all these like crazy characters, and he's trying to get back to society, but then whenever the Avengers are pissed at him, and it's good stuff, very good stuff. The art style isn't as good as what you get in Punisher Black and White and Border Crossing and Last Days, which is right before Secret Wars happened and it reset the Marvel's comic universe. The art, the character writing, everything's really well done in that one. It's very well done. I like to give a shout out when things are done well. It's no fun being negative all the time, even though it's quite easy. And so I feel like people don't like the Punisher because there's not a consistent baseline to base it off of. You can't be like, yeah, I like Batman, but I like this run. I know who Batman is. I know with the perimeters of his personality and his motivations. So that's clearly a different incarnation of Batman. So if I don't like that, that doesn't imply or infer that I have an issue with Batman as a character. And Neil Druckman, who is the creative mind behind, The Last of Us and Uncharted 4, he took over for, and The Last of Us Part 2. He doesn't have the subtlety to handle a Punisher story. First of all, a big thing that just, what a narcissistic douchebag move. He inserted a version of himself into The Last of Us Part 2. It's a different guy playing a dude who looks and sounds and acts like him, whose entire personality trait is that he slays mad lady genitals all the time. Like, he's just banging it out nonstop in the apocalypse, which, by the way, unless they have gotten a lot of really good hygiene working where they go, that's going to smell horrific. It'll smell like a rotten fish market. No one wants that. But literally I'm not exaggerating. I know it's easy to do like hyperbole and exaggerate for the sake of comedy or making a point. For some reason, everyone feels like you have to exaggerate to make points now, but that just basically makes you a liar. For the first 30 minutes of meeting this character, every woman you meet, like, oh yeah, I had her in my bedroom the other night. It was nice. I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? No, stop that. This is not, look, there's like 5 to 8 hours of good stuff in The Last of Us Part 2, and it's sandwiched in between a whole lot of garbage. It is not worth paying for. They couldn't pay me to play that again. And the multiplayer isn't even included in it. What kind of BS is that? Anyway, this is not the time to talk about it. If you want to know the full scoop on that, go to the Poppycock podcast website. It's poppycock.video.blog. Read about it. Because he wants to make a Punisher video game, and I don't think him and his team of hipsters have the emotional depth and subtlety of writing to bring that character to light. If he misinterpreted his own characters that he wrote that poorly, or I guess technically since he made them, he didn't misinterpret them. He just wrote horrible characters that were likable in one game and not at all in the second one, which is not encouraging. I would rather see the people who made the Mad Max game if anyone had to do it. I think they're called Monolith. They're part of the WB Games, sort of a sister company to Rocksteady that did the Arkham games. You can feel some of that DNA, and I think they were involved in the Shadow of War games. So you could even include the Nemesis system with a couple of thugs, sort of introduce like a jigsaw mechanic where if you, blow off a knee, they come back with like some type of X-Men or Spider-Man or Stark Tech or, some type of Green Goblin crap or whatever, they come back with little gimmicks and now they're a little bit tougher. So you really need to execute them. I think it'd be sick. sort of have an infamous style where like the world like around you has like a morality opinion of you. It'd be kind of cool. That'd be a sick game. I just described a pretty sick game. I'm not gonna lie. That was pretty off the cuff. Give him like a motorcycle or like a tactical van. In some versions, he has a van he operates out of, which is both creepy, although in a modern era, it just means he's part of the hashtag van life society, and it just means he's a cool dude who likes to listen to John Denver and Imagine Dragons and chill out by the lake. So seeing that he wanted to take a stab at the Punisher, I was like, please, sweet Jesus, no. Insulting a character named Joel of my own namesake was bad. Trying to have the subtlety, I like the message of like, hey, people aren't as bad as their worst things. People change, people evolve. You don't always understand where someone's coming from. I'm not against the message that he was trying to send, but the game design of judging you for 30 hours and lecturing you about how you made the wrong choices when you have no control over the choices your character makes is dumb as hell. And it's just, there's a lot wrong with it. So I never want to see Neil Druckman touch the Punisher because the guy has, again, the subtlety of like a CW writer, like this, like Supergirl levels of writing, which is the whole topic. I'm not even going to chase that rabbit because I'll get pissed off. But yeah, people have been saying now that they want to cancel the Punisher, which is a fictional person. You can't be like, he one time texted me a racial slur. First of all, I doubt the Punisher texts. Second of all, he's fictional. No. But it's because when people were storming the Capitol building, which the Punisher would have been against, he would have been like, this is stupid. What? They've been killing innocent people with drone strikes for years and listening on your emails, and you did nothing. But the guy you wanted to get elected didn't, and now you're going to overturn the justice system? You're children and you're stupid and you don't deserve the rights you have. He would have said that. And I know that because as I said it, I started to emotionally connect with it. But, I mean, just imagine your favorite, Thomas Jane, balls. I just forgot the name of the guy who played him. Not Ray Donovan, that's the Liev Schreiber show. The big guy from Warzone, or John Bernthal. Just imagine them saying that to people trying to storm the Capitol. I'll be like, what the hell's this? Why are they mad? Oh, that's stupid. That's what he would do. But people saw this one person storming the Capitol had a Punisher-style skull on like a backpack or hoodie. First of all, people who fetishize revolutions and guns and stuff, they typically are like, I'm tough. And so, of course, they go for the edgy. Go look at like a bunch of edgy biker dudes and truck guys. They have skulls everywhere and truck nuts. Admittedly, if he had truck nuts on his chest, I wouldn't have to say this, but you can't just get rid of characters when people misunderstand them. You can't control what the consumer does once they've purchased a product. That's just not how consumerism works. It's not how any of this works at all. I wish it was, because if I sold things and someone misdid it, I'd be like, hey, I'm suing you for wearing my shoes to a party I didn't like, dude. I'm sure, Walmart would have to sue a lot of people who use their sheets for Klan meetings. Actually, I wonder if they can. No, they probably can't. No, I don't think they can. That'd be hilarious. Walmart versus the Klan. Oh my God, that would be awesome. You get a lot. Well, I'm never gonna shop there again if they infringe on my rights. I'm like, okay, well, you just admitted who you are. Anyway, but yeah, it's a dumb reason to do that. And I mean, there were people when. This is another topic I have to dance around or else I'll get mad about it. When the whole Captain America Hail Hydra thing happened, where he was Hydra. And people were pissed off about that. And there was a dude, I believe he was actually even a Marine, who said that he joined the military and he grew up in a bad part of the neighborhood. He had a rough life. And he was like, I read Captain America comics and I modeled who I am after the example that this character set. So if you're telling me that he has no morals, then why shouldn't I just come and shoot you? Why not just show up to Marvel Studios or the headquarters where you're writing and your staff are and shoot you because Captain America would do that if that's what you think of Captain America. First of all, an overblown reaction. I don't think I need to say that, but I'm going to. That's an insane person. That's an emotionally unstable person. That's not healthy. The Punisher has been a controversial character. He kills people, but he should have a moral code. He isn't a murder hobo. He needs to have a drive. One of the only good things about Punisher Warzone is that the Punisher accidentally kills an undercover cop who he thought was just another mobster whenever he was trying to wipe out a gang. And he feels horrible guilt for what he's done. And you get a glimpse into, He has aside from all of his tactical gear in his bunker, he also has like a toy chest of his like kids' old toys that he just sort of like sits there, and he's like, like that's like he has like almost a like a coffin for who he was. It's just all of the knickknacks and things from his old life there. And it's really good character development. He's in a horrible movie, but it's really good character development and good moments of like, I feel guilt, and he has emotions. But just drawing from my own personal experience, when I was in the military and when I got out, I couldn't experience the happiness that I felt. Like I could laugh with buddies. Like if someone made a joke, I could laugh, right? But it was shallow. I didn't feel it like in like that laugh where you're like your ribs hurt, you're crying, you're losing your mind. It's the funniest thing you've ever heard of. I didn't feel joy. I didn't light up and smile. I didn't get excited about anything really. It was just like, oh, they canceled this. Thank God I can get some more sleep. I'm completely deprived of it. Every day, especially when you're young, they really pick on you. And they'd be like, so did you slay some puss this weekend? I was like, I've been here for 2 weeks. I'm really just trying to get fully moved in and figure out what I signed up for the rest of like my tenure at this base. I live in a desert next to a mountain. It's been a little difficult adapting. Actually, it wasn't that difficult. I actually really like El Paso. Really cool place. I actually don't mind Fort Bliss. I don't like working there, but I had some really good memories hanging out with my buddies there. Because I could experience joy. I could play video games. I could make jokes with someone. I could drive a fun car and go to car meets and go eat a good burger and talk about relationships with some of my buddies. Like, yeah, no, it turns out she was cheating, right? I mean, we all knew, but sorry to hear that, man. But I never experienced any of those positive emotions in a fully realized way. Frank is the epitome of that to a level that I will never know, I pray. He's been through 1,000% more trauma than me. He's seen way worse stuff, and he does way worse things. So he can still feel remorse and guilt and empathy and sadness and to maybe even some extent some joy. And I think we see that in some versions where he has some dry wit and humor to him. But he's trying to help people, and he can't turn that off. He wants to help people. So he's at his very core, that innermost seed of a man is still a good man. It's just rooted in something. It's like that one good seed planted in a completely burned down forest. It looks destroyed and desolate, but it wants to thrive. And so no matter how much he says he's done with the world, if he sees something bad happening, he won't be able to stop himself from intervening eventually. In fact, the short movie Dirty Laundry with Thomas Jane as the Punisher, great example of that. So I don't judge the people who misunderstand the Punisher. Do I judge the people who think they should cancel a fictional character? Yeah, that's stupid. Canceling is mental gymnastics in and of itself. It's stupid and has no place in society, and anytime you think that angry mob should be able to determine who does and doesn't have the right to exist on media platforms or work in certain professions, the second that's turned on someone you care about or even you'll change your tune. Every weapon you point at your enemy can be pointed back at you. Once it's on the table, it's anyone's game. So that's stupid. But I don't judge people for not understanding the character. He hasn't been consistently handled. Again, those Punisher Black and White, Border Crossing, Final Days, the War in Bagalia, those are some ones that I've read, the War Machine one even. It's really well done. War Machine almost reads like it's a continuation of the Netflix series because he's drawn so much like Burnt On. He's voiced, like you can just hear John's voice whenever you're reading it. It's very impressive. And I started to feel like I was going crazy. I was like, man, maybe my incarnation of the Punisher is a little off because, the few things have changed. Like I gave him like a shoulder tattoo from the Marine Corps because I know a lot of Marines that had a tattoo there. I'm thinking about that or his forearm. That's a big thing. They really like doing those things. So I might give him a couple of Marine tattoos, And I'm going to give him sort of, honestly, the haircut that Josh Brolin had as Cable, but with black hair. Because something that you may not know unless you've been in the military, if you've seen my channel, so you've physically seen my face, I usually keep the side of my hair pretty short because I cannot stand the feeling of hair on the side of my ears anymore. And I used to look like a Jonas brother in high school. But after the military, I just can't stand the feeling of hair on my neck or on the side of my ears. I feel like a disgusting, sweaty hobo immediately. And I want to shave my head the second it happens. Lockdown has been a little bit more complicated because my wife does not want a bald husband. So I wanted him the haircut, and I was trying to, whenever I write a character, I like to hear a voice. Like, even if I'm not basing the face on them, I like to hear a voice in the character, or have like my version of the Punisher. It's a little bit of Thomas Jane, a little Tom Hardy, a little Josh Brolin, and who else did I say that it was? A little Harrison Ford. Like, he's crunchy, he's grouchy, he's got a little bit of dry humor, he's tough. I had this whole concoction. I had it, I can't off the top of my head, I was thinking about it the other day, of like, okay, so if I can't figure out how this person would deliver that line, how would this person deliver that line? And then collectively it becomes this one creature that you sort of Frankenstein together. And the main one that I've gone by, because I also want to eventually draw at least like a cover for it, or maybe sketch it as like a free, like fan-made comic for someone to read, along with A Cold Night in Gotham that I wrote, voice acted, sound edited, and got Kevin Conroy to voice Batman in, which you can check out, of course, on our website or on our YouTube channel. I think it's also on our podcast feed as well. So if you're listening to this as a podcast form, I'm a man of all trades. I can say that he's been the Joker, or I've been the Joker while he's been Batman. That's pretty sick. So I'd like to also draw that, because that's a lot easier to draw. It's very few set pieces and characters involved in that one. But this one, I was trying to be like, what should I base it off of? And I was like, Josh Brolin actually would be great. And some people have said he's too short. Josh Brolin is 5'10". Jon Bernthal's 5'11". I don't think 1 inch should be the deciding factor in casting a role. They have boots with a lot of give on them. And if I'm drawing him, I can just draw him taller. Which is now a time I'm going to... I thought I was crazy. And then I saw Reddit user... Hang on, let me read his name, because I know I'm going to slaughter it. User Dravenerman, Dravnerman, who was saying, I really like Jon Bernthal as Frank, but what do you guys think about Josh Brolin playing the Max Punisher, which is from Punisher Max? And I thought that was an interesting thing. I was like, I feel super validated in the fact that, I thought this way, someone else thought that way. People, again, were like, he was Thanos, he was Cable. Like, well, Cable's not going to get used again because they shot down the idea of the X-Force movie, which is a shame. So that's also something I'm sort of like, well, what would I do if I was doing a X-Force thing? And Thanos was a completely CGI character with a purple nutsack for a chin. So I think we can get away with it. Plus, it's not like they're actually going to do it. Marvel has Jon Bernthal in it as the Punisher from Netflix, and allegedly Charlie Cox, who played Matt Murdock / Daredevil in Netflix, that he's going to be in the next Spider-Man movie representing Peter Parker. So that technically makes, unless they clearly are like redoing the way he looks, I would argue that means that it's the same one from the Netflix series. So everything else from Netflix is also then, it means dragons are technically canon in the MCU. Anyway, it's just been, it felt a little validating, and it's been fun to work on this. And unfortunately, I was running it by a lot of military people, and then the lockdown happened, and so now I can't see a lot of those people. And vets are really bad at staying in communication with one another. We like to be by ourselves, so it's been very difficult staying in contact. I do think that the Punisher could be a legacy character where different people take on the mantle. The Punisher had a sort of secondary female character along with him for a while, who in the modern version was a dick. But before that was more polite with Frank and all that. And it's sort of like not like a Batman around, but they were both like if a criminal had a gun to that person's head and the other person had the gun, be like, don't do it, or else she'd be like, take the shot, kill the motherfucker. And they'd be like they are all about like, kill this person. I'm ready to die at any moment as long as it takes one more scumbag out with me. Like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon crazy. God, it's such good acting. The first Lethal Weapon movie where like he tries to like, he jumps with the suicide jumper and he's like handcuffed to him, I think. And then Danny Glover pulls him aside, like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, I put a gun in my mouth. I lost my wife. And he's like talking and he's like crying. Holy cow. Like early 90s Punisher would have been awesome by Mel Gibson. Wow. What a missed opportunity. Originally, Mel Gibson was going to be Wolverine in a film that never got made. That would have been pretty interesting. He also almost played Odin in the MCU. Robert Downey Jr. wanted him to play it, but he was like, I don't think I could pass as Nordic. So we got Anthony Hopkins, who's an incredible actor. But it would have been nice because Freya, his wife, is played by the woman who is his romantic partner in the Lethal Weapon movie. So it would have been a nice little connection. he's clearly happier and funnier than the Punisher. But I think that was the first time I saw something. I was like, oh my God, that's acting. That's how acting looks. That's what acting is. I believe this guy. That's acting. Like, he just ran the emotional gauntlet. As a little kid, I was like, I know what acting is now. And then I saw Ghost Rider, and I saw Nick Cage screaming like a maniac as the camera panned around and his face turned into a skull. I was like, oh no, you can act and not do it well, and people will think you're dumb. And immediately I had stage fright anytime I was in a play, anytime I did anything, because I realized for the first time that you could screw up acting. So thanks, Nick Cage. You've ruined what Mel Gibson did for me. It's a statement not a lot of people will say. So yeah, I understand. Punisher. Difficult character to discuss in an era that wasn't full of people being offended by, like, guacamole toast and whole milk. Here we are, though. But people are trying to say that old movies and some streaming services should have a warning before them. And some video games even do. They're like, hey, I know the stuff you see here might be offensive, but we don't mean it. It's just part of the story we're telling. I think people should just wake up to one that says, hey, you might see things that are offensive today. Get over it. You can complain to your friends and family, but it's called a difference of opinion. And it's one of the best things about the Poppycock podcast is that aside from this, because the Punisher touches so many actual things that people genuinely fight about, most of the time we're just talking about pop culture, which means you don't have to discuss things that there's no right or wrong. It's all subjective. It's art. It's meant for consumption. It's like a potato chip. If you like it and your friend doesn't, neither one of you are right or wrong. It's taste. That's how it is with art, comics, storytelling, poems, music, video games, TV shows, you know. That's the beauty of the Poppycock podcast, in my opinion. Anyway, this has been a longer than expected episode, but it's a character that has a lot going on, and there's a lot of nuance, and there's a lot of stuff to break down. So, sorry about that, but also, I mean, maybe you're listening to this while you're working out, or getting groceries, or cleaning the house, or you've just been in lockdown for so long that you just need to hear another voice and feel like you're not alone. I'm glad I could provide that for you. Thank you for listening. We genuinely appreciate everyone who goes to our website, who watches our videos, who listens to our podcast, all that stuff. It's been a little bit more difficult doing stuff during the pandemic, but due to circumstances that we'll discuss in a future episode, things were very difficult, but now they're not going to be as difficult. So it's going to be a lot easier to do this with multiple hosts and co-hosts and guests on at a time, discussing things, making it happen a lot faster. Because the first season had like 20-something episodes, and the second season had like 6 episodes, because then the pandemic hit and we couldn't see anyone. Sorry about that. But, you know, season 3 is sort of a renaissance. It's almost like a season 1.5 that we had. So, yeah, we've also got bonus videos, like stuff that I make on my own channel that are linked on our main YouTube page that go on our website as well. We have our articles that go up that aren't always... Like, there's videos that get put there, but there's articles that don't have a video to go with them. So if you like reading, those are there. We've been doing those for like 2 years now. We've been doing the videos and stuff. In fact, we did our first podcast episode a little over 2 years ago. Back when we were were we on a different podcast, or was it this one? Because we started a podcast with someone else. It doesn't matter. But yeah, it's a blast doing this. It's fun just getting the feeling of talking to someone without worrying about anyone getting sick. It just feels good. And to hear something and you can talk back to me. What's your favorite color? Really? Mine's green. Are you more of a dog or a cat person? Really? Personally, I'm more of a dog guy, but I like cats. I'm just allergic to them, or else I'd probably have like 12 of them, if I'm being entirely honest. Yeah. Well, you know, we're both pretty cool people. See, now you don't feel so alone. Anyway, I really appreciate everyone who listens to this, especially I think right now we could all use something to keep our minds off of just the circumstances of life. It's like a rainy day or being sick. It's going to be over someday, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be while you're in it. So you just got to find something to do and get through it. Anyway, appreciate you listening. Appreciate you being here. Stay safe, stay sane, and we'll see you in the next episode, which will have at least one other host, if not 2 or 3. So it's going to be a lot more potentially chaotic, but you won't just be one person talking. Although, let's be real, if it was just going to be one person talking, you lucked out because it's me. All right, we'll see you in the next episode.